But what we saw in the bigger picture was a lot of players finding their roles and really galvanizing around Brian Flores.
The season's now done for the Vikings, a 7-10 season. Kirk Cousins injured in Week 8 with season-ending Achilles injury, and there was a little bit of a run in there to get them back to 500 after an 0-3 start, but then an 0-4 stretch down the final 4 games of the season sees them end with that 7-10 record, out of the playoffs, third place in the NFC North. So let's talk about this season and let's assess it a little bit. Give me 3 things that worked for the Vikings this season.
I think number one is their 2023 draft class, and I am going to include Ivan Pace in that draft class, even though the selection was not used on him, but undrafted free agent money was. To get Jordan Addison, a game-changing wide receiver in the first round, if we were to redraft, I guarantee you Jordan Addison would be a top 10 pick. And instead, the Vikings end up getting him at a position where you would not expect to get a guy who finished third in the league in rookie receiving yards, who, when Justin Jefferson went out, was really spectacular and stepped up to the challenge, and somebody who could still grow as well. And then I thought Mekhi Blackmon also had a good, first season as a rookie. He led the team in PFF coverage grade, and Ivan Pace emerged as a high quality linebacker despite his size that kept him out of the draft. But it doesn't matter now when he's on the field making plays, and was a very successful blitzer, a good run stopper. He did a little bit of everything. And again, another player who, while he cannot grow taller, can grow as a player into that role. So the 2023 draft class was, in my mind, a big hit for the Vikings. I think that it can't go understated or overstated. Overstated how good Christian Darrisaw was this year. At the end of the season, I think he was battling some things, and he had a poor game against the Green Bay Packers, as most of the Vikings offensive line did. But when you look at the accumulation of the season, one of the best offensive linemen in the entire NFL, one of the 10 highest graded among all linemen by Pro Football Focus. And our question was, well, can he carry it over? He emerged as a star in 2022. Can he carry it over? And the answer is absolutely yes. The Minnesota Vikings have a franchise left tackle, and in turn have built an offensive line that can pass block in a quality way. And it might depend on what they do at left guard in the offseason, but as an overall offensive line, the best performance that we have seen in many years. And then back to the defensive side, I'll pair two here together for the things that went right for them. Brian Flores went right for them. They had a tough end to the season. They had injuries. They played some very good offenses, and the juice ran out. But what we saw in the bigger picture was a lot of players finding their roles and really galvanizing around Brian Flores. And I'll pair that together with Danielle Hunter and 16 and a half sacks. It was a career year for him, despite the fact that all the attention from opposing defenses had to go on to one really great pass rusher. So for those two, those were two question marks coming in. How's Flores going to boost the defense? How's Hunter going to work in that scheme? And the answer was, good on both sides for both of them.
So 7-10 in season means there's some things did go wrong. So what are 3 things that didn't work for the Vikings this season?
Yeah, a lot of things went wrong, and some of them are out of their control. So that's kind of the question here is, do we answer this with things that are in their control or out of their control? I think fumbles and injuries are kind of out of their control. One thing that did not go well, we mentioned the 2023 draft class. Well, certainly the opposite was true of the 2022 draft class, that Andrew Booth Jr. failed to reach 200 snaps. Lewis Cine barely saw the field at all, even on special teams, and was healthy for the entire season. Ed Ingram did take a big step forward from where he was last year, still will finish in the bottom 5 in pressures allowed among guards in the NFL. And I think with Ty Chandler, we saw something from him. Maybe he should have been RB1 a little bit longer, and there's potential for him in the future. The same with the Caleb Evans, but a Caleb Evans being benched multiple times over the final few games was a little bit of cold water on what was a pretty good season for him. Overall, still, it's hard to write home about anything from the 2022 draft class. There's a natural place to go with this after that, which is the running game in general. But I'll even tie this to 2 players that we were putting a spotlight on at the beginning of the year, KJ Osborne and the running game, Alexander Madison. The big story was these guys are going to have opportunities here, that KJ Osborne's going into a free agent year and Madison gets to be RB1. And both players underachieved or did not step to the level that we thought. They were kind of themselves or even a lesser version than what they have been in the past rather than taking that big jump. And when you put someone into that spot, you never know how it's going to go. But I think Madison is still very much an NFL running back, but it's clear that handing him the keys as asking him to be Dalvin Cook was not something that he was capable of doing. And they may end up pairing him again with Ty Chandler as RB1 next year. But the running game overall was one of the worst in the entire NFL. One of the worst in yards, one of the worst in yards per carry, one of the worst in expected points added, and even with a little bit of a boost from Josh Dobbs for a couple of games. And that should be the last place we go. The backup quarterbacks. It was a carousel. It was some highs and lows. Nick Mullins throwing for nearly 800 yards in 2 games against the Lions was not something that I had on my bingo board, or nor did I expect Josh Dobbs to rise and fall as quickly as he did. But what you hope for when you have a backup quarterback come in is that they can win half the games and give you a chance, and that did not happen. If they had, then maybe the Vikings would have been going into the last week with a chance to make the playoffs. Instead, they did not get great performances from those backups and ultimately end up missing the playoffs.
That's been another Purple Insider Extra for Bring Me the Sports. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Purple Insider Podcast wherever you get your podcast. Talk to you next time.